All right, let's work on this practice. So first practice problem, we're going to set it up. Look at your exponents, 3, 2, 1, 0. So that works out. Exponents are going down, so we didn't skip any, did not miss any terms. Set this up. 4x to the third minus 24x squared plus 12x plus 42, and then 4x minus 8 on the outside. All right, first term divided by first term. First leading term divided by the first leading term. So 4x to the third, so 4 divided by 4 is 1. X to the third divided by x is going to be x squared. So we'll put that over the x squared. X squared times 4x is 4x to the third. X squared times negative 8 is a negative 8x squared. Then we're going to subtract. I put it in parentheses to remind myself to distribute that subtraction. So 4x to the third minus 4x to the third. There's 0x to the third. Negative 24x squared minus a negative, so that's plus. Think of this as a plus then. So that's negative 24 plus 8 is going to be a negative 16x squared. Bring the next term down. Repeat the process over again. Divide the first term divided by first term. So negative 16 divided by 4 is negative 4. X squared divided by x is x. Negative 4x times 4, so now we multiply back down, so it's negative 16x squared. Negative 4x times negative 8 is a positive 32x. Subtracting the exact same terms, we'll simplify to 0. 12 minus 32 is a negative 20x. Bring down 42. It's a positive 42 or plus 42. Now we do this exact same process. So negative 20, so first term divided by first term. So negative 20x divided by 4 is a negative 5. Do that in a different color. Maybe that'll help out. Negative 5, and then multiply it back down. So distributing negative 5 times 4 is negative 20x, and then negative 5 times a negative 8 is a positive 40. I'm going to subtract this. First terms will simplify. 42 minus 40 is 2. So that's a remainder of 2. So we're going to write this as the remainder is a positive 2 over 4x minus 8 from what we're dividing by. There's your final answer. So there is a remainder there. Second problem. Looking at our exponents, 3, 2, 1, 0. They all go down. Didn't skip any terms. Awesome. So let's write this out. 7a to the third plus 27a squared plus 3a minus 1. And we have 7a minus 1 on the outside, what you're dividing by. Let's look at it. Start it out. First term divided by first term. So 7a to the third divided by 7a. And you absolutely could do this off to the side if you really wanted. You could do something like this. If that helps you out, so that would simplify a to the third, so subtract exponents when you're dividing like bases. So this will be a squared. And then you're going to multiply, distribute back down. So a squared times 7a is 7a to the third. And these should always line up. The first term should always be exactly the same. See vertically. A squared times a negative 1 is a negative a squared. And we're subtracting both terms. It really doesn't matter. You could absolutely do a subtracting and then subtract the negative, which is a plus. And that way you're just looking at it vertically. These will simplify. 27a squared plus another a squared plus one more a squared is 28a squared. Bring down your next term. You should always have two terms down below before you're dividing back up. First term divided by first term. So 28 divided by 7 is 4. And a squared divided by a is a. Now multiply this back down. 4a times 7a, so we're distributing 28a squared. 4a times negative 1 is negative 4a. And you can do like the subtraction like I did above. A lot of times I will just make it, you're subtracting and put parentheses. That reminds me to distribute. So 28a minus 28a simplifies 3a minus a negative, which is plus. So this will end up being 7a. Bring down our last term. And we have first term divided by first term, 7a divided by 7. That's 1. Sweet. 1 times 7a is 7a. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Oh my goodness, look at this. They're exactly the same. 7a minus 7a simplified. Negative 1 minus a negative 1, that's plus, so that simplifies. And we get 0, so it's a remainder of 0. So that means it divided evenly. So a squared plus 4a plus 1 is your final answer after you divide. The next problem. So we have, look at our exponents, 3, 2, 0. So we're missing the first. We're missing to the first power here. So when we write this out, we got to make sure to include that. So we have 8m to the third plus 5m squared. We're missing the m term. I guess I should have had m up here. Plus 0m. You could write to the first if you want, but you don't need to the first. It's always just assumed it's there. It's simplified, I guess I should say, not just assumed. All right, let's divide first term divided by first term. 8m to the third divided by 8m is m squared. Now multiply back down, distribute. 8m, or m squared times m, 8m, is 8m to the third. Look at vertically, those match up, that's perfect. M squared times 5 is 5m squared. And now we're going to subtract. 8m cubed minus 8m cubed, simplify to 0. 5m squared minus 5m squared, uh-oh, those simplify also. So we really have 0m squared, and we have a 0m coming down here. Strange. Since we don't really have anything left here, nothing at all. Well, we could divide going up, but that's really just going to be 0. And 0 doesn't do anything for an answer. There's nothing there. So we already have something. M squared plus 0 is just m squared, so we really don't need that part. We could bring down the only number we have left is 5. Well, 5 doesn't divide by 8 at all, 8m. It doesn't divide by 8m evenly, so that's actually going to be a remainder. And we're already done. So you could say remainder 5, or you could say 5 over 8m plus 5. That's your final answer. All right, looking down here, determine whether the divisor is a factor of each dividend. If it divides evenly, it's a factor. So working on this, looking at our exponents, 2, 1, nothing. So exponents go down perfectly. 49n squared minus 63n plus 14, 7n minus 2 on the outside. So first term divided by first term, so 49n squared divided by 7n is 7n. 7n times 7n is 49n squared. 7n times negative 2 is a negative 14n. We're going to subtract both terms from above, so vertically. 49n squared minus 49n squared, simplify. So here we got to be careful of our negatives. So minus a negative 14. So negative 63n minus a negative. So that's like plus. So you want to distribute that in. You certainly can and make it plus. If that helps you think about this, and that's 49n, negative 49n. Bring down your next term. Negative 49n divided by 7n is a negative 7. Negative 7 times 7n is a negative 49n, looking good. Negative 7 times a negative 2 is a positive 14. This is looking great, because when you subtract both of these, they will simplify, and you'll have no remainder, which means that it is a factor. So 7n minus 2 is a factor. When it divides evenly, when you get r equals 0, that means it's the remainder it divided in evenly. That means that what you're dividing by actually is a factor of the polynomial. So let's look at the next one. So we look at the exponents, 3, 2, 1, 0. Cool. Don't have to add anything in. So we 5n to the third plus 46n squared plus 29n plus 12. We have 5n plus 1. First term divided by first term is going to be n squared. N squared times 5n is 5n to the third. N squared times 1 is n squared. Subtract these. First terms will simplify down to 0. 46n squared minus 1n squared is 45n squared. Bring down your next term. So we always have two terms here. You do first term divided by the first term, and that'll be 9n. And then multiply it back down, distribute. So 9n times 5n, 45n squared. 9n times 1 is 9n. Subtract. Simplify the first. 29n minus the 9n, you have 20n's left. Bring down to 12. And we got to divide. 20n, so first term divided by first term is going to be 4. Multiply it back down. So 4 times 5n is 20n, and 4 times the 1 up top, because we're distributing to that binomial, is 4. When we subtract these, first terms cancel, simplify, and the last one simplifies to 8. No more terms to bring down, has a remainder, so not a factor. That's actually your final answer, and it's because there's a remainder. And lastly, looking at our last problem here, we have exponents 3, 1, 0. So we're missing squared. So we need to put that in. So when we do this, we're going to have 64r cubed. We're missing a squared term. And we don't need to write the r to 0. I just had that so you can see what it actually is to the 0 power. First term divided by first term. 64 divided by 8 is 8. R cubed divided by r is r squared. Now multiply back down. So 8r squared times 8r is 64r cubed. 8r squared times 6 is 48r squared. Subtract your first 64r cubed minus 64r cubed is 0r cubed, which is 0. 0r squared minus 48r squared is a negative 48r squared. Bring down your next term. Ooh, 36r. Divide first term by first term. That'll be a negative 6r. Negative 6r times times 8r is negative 48r squared. Negative 6r times 6 is a negative 36r. All right, we got to be careful here. I see something that's very easy to make a mistake on. So same exact terms, subtracting, gives 0. The next one, we have 36 minus negative 36. That's like a plus. Minus a negative is a plus. So really you have 72 r's here. Super careful. A lot of people would make that 0. If you did, it's a good mistake to make now. Just don't make it on the test. So 72r, so now it's first term divided by first term. 72r divided by 8 is 9. 9 times 8r is 72r. 9 times 6 is 54. Oh man, so close. When we distribute, first term simplify to 0. 53 minus 54 is a remainder of negative 1. So it really did not, not a factor. That's because there's a remainder. If the remainder was 0, so 8r plus 6 is not a factor because it has a remainder. Hopefully